Hello, everyone. You are listening to the C Squared podcast with Corey and Curtis. Today, we are here with our favorite wolf cub, James Delbridge of the band LYCANTHRO. We're very happy to have him here. We're going to be talking things PR and promotion related because he just had an album come out. It's a great album, so if you haven't checked it out, do it. I will find you if you don't. But first, I do just want to say thank you, James, for joining us today. We're really happy to have you back on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys. I always love talking with you guys, so it's great to be here.
But why? We're weird.
I like weird people. It's more interesting.
So Baby James. So James's name for the show is Baby James or Wolf Cub, just for anybody listening. But Baby James. So when did you start promoting the album? Like what was the actual time frame that you were promoting the album for?
It was about like almost like 2 months, I think. It's like we started in early to mid April, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Weren't you doing Instagram lives before that?
I was, yeah.
So including those, because you actually that was basically the start of your promo cycle, I would think, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah? Well, we hadn't really announced it at that point. It's just because
we're talking about new albums.
Well, the thing is just because the when we started doing the okay, so what happened was that when I started doing the Instagram lives, it was sort of like a weird. I thought that the album was going to be done before, closer than it was. One thing that I keep telling people whenever I do interviews and all that is that this album was like Spinal Tap. It took so long, and everything that could have went wrong. And I don't mean the end product. I mean like the process, like every little setback you could think of happened. And when I started
Stonehenge.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like when Stonehenge came down.
Did the drummer explode at any point in time?
Oh, multiple times. One of them died in a bizarre gardening accident. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So anyways, you were.
Yeah, no, but what I was saying was that I pretty much I thought the album was already going to be ready by the time I started doing the Instagram lives, but even when it wasn't, I think it was like in the middle of being mixed. I thought, well, I already have like the first 3 or 4 weeks worth of guests. I'm not just gonna tell them because all these people have their own lives and their own schedules. Yeah. So I thought, I'm not gonna cancel them because when's the next time I'm able to talk to some of these people? So I kind of started early, and I think the first live I did where I actually started promoting the album is the one I did with Lindsay, because that was the one I did with her was the same day when we announced it. So
I didn't realize that. Okay, I look back. You started doing the live streams in February.
Yeah, because I legit thought that we would have had it ready by then.
Well, no, but you actually kind of started doing a promo cycle beginning in February. So you've been doing it for like 4 months.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah. So okay, so let's just kind of start here. So I know you just said it wasn't kind of like really intentional because the music wasn't ready, but so how did you kind of pick your guests? Because it looks like your first guest, it was Gaia, John, and I can't tell who the third person is. Paul from Blackguard, that's who it is.
Yes, so, yeah. Well, a lot of the guests that I've gotten in the beginning and also since, it's just a lot of the same kind of like what you guys obviously talk about on your show a lot is I just get people a lot of the times that I want to network with, like a lot of people who I kind of either look up to or people I want to work with in some capacity. And that's kind of how I decide who's going to be on or not, because there's certain people that for whatever reason I want to try and cultivate a relationship with. And I find that the Instagram live stuff is it's so personal, you know what I mean? It's so because I always, whenever someone tells you, they're like, oh, you interview bands. I'm like, no, I don't interview anybody. We just chat, we just talk. Like I'll have stuff. It's like what you guys do here. I'll have stuff prepared, but if a conversation goes a certain way, it goes a certain way. So totally. Yeah. And then we've gotten to make a lot of really great new friends from this from doing these. Like I'll give you an example, and this one was pretty cool. Was there's a singer who I have followed since I was in high school, and her name's Leather Leone. She's from the band. Well, she was from the band at least. Chastain. They're like a really old school U.S. power metal band.
Yep.
And I didn't know this, but she's like, for her age, she's on Instagram a lot. And
Wow.
I asked her like, oh, you know, do you want to be on the show? And she goes, yeah, absolutely. And then literally since then, she liked us enough where she literally sent me free merch. And we literally like casually message on like a day-to-day basis because like, just because like she liked us a lot. And this is me like being a fanboy, being like, holy shit, Leather Leone thinks I'm cool. You know, so
okay, so actually before I move on to the next question, Corey, do you have any follow-up about the Instagram lives or anything like that?
No, I just think that they're an amazing tool. I've seen one other band doing something similar, but on YouTube. And I mean, they're great to build a community around your band and have people more emotionally invested in your band, also promoting your band while also promoting other people. It's something that is underrated in this industry because it always feels like we're at war with each other. Like, oh, my album's coming out, but your album's coming out. And rather than trying to help each other, people start to butt heads. But really, the way that James is doing it and the way this one other band is doing it, where they're inviting people into their community, it's so much more, I don't know, it's wholesome while also being an extremely powerful tool to help each other. Because really, we're not in conflict. People listen to different bands all the time. So
and if I may add to that, there that's actually interesting that you bring up the community thing, Corey, because speaking of like our lives, so this past Friday we did our album release live stream where I convinced all my bandmates to show up on camera for once, and pretty much, and I also invited some of the past guests who we've had on just to come and hang out. Like we had our guy who engineered some of our stuff, Jack from Seven Spires, and Bill from North Tail, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, a bunch of other stuff, Leather, and Gaia for like 2 minutes because she was at a restaurant.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah. But the thing that I found with that my friend Bill told me, because he lives in the States, he lives in Florida, and Leather too, she lives in California. And one thing that they were telling me, and I find this is really interesting between like the scenes in Canada and the US, is that I find that the whole, you know, building up the community thing, I find that happens a lot more in Canada because all the Canadian bands, I've from what I've seen, no matter where you're from, we're all buddies or acquaintances in some way, shape, or form. While one thing that Bill and Leather were telling me that in the States, it's the opposite, which is really unfortunate. They're telling me that like all the bands there are like extremely jaded and like all they do is like, you know, try and outdo one another. And they said the same thing. They're like, no, you know, like, why do you have to do that? That's just it's so stupid.
I think it's also a generational thing. Because I've noticed it more with bands where the members are in their 40s or older, where there's still that kind of territorial competitive attitude. But bands from my generation and younger tend to kind of lean more towards the community building, because that's how like Vintersea is, and they're my age. And it also might be like a West Coast versus East Coast thing, because Vintersea, they live like 20 minutes away from me. But it could be that, and plus there's just a lot of bands in the US that they feel like they have to be competitive when they really don't. In that if they stopped being competitive, they probably see better results, because yeah, I have seen that territorial factor. I also see it coming out of Europe too, where there are it's a no, this is my audience kind of deal. Don't piggyback on my people. And it's like, that's not the point. It's all to help each other. But yeah, there are only a handful of bands I've noticed do it in the US versus Canada. You're right. Maybe it's just because you're all polite, nice Canadians, and we're mean, tough,
No,
redneck
no,
Americans.
because something like 45% of all Canadians live in the southern Ontario / Montreal, or sorry, 60% or something like that, Montreal area. So it's probably the close proximity, because I mean, most people are within 6 hours driving of each other. With
Yeah,
that,
not here.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, vast majority of Canadians live between southern Ontario and Montreal. It's just the way it is. So that would be my guess on that one.
That is true, because we
yeah.
are really spread out here.
Yeah. Well, we are too, but it's just the population isn't.
Population isn't, but the population here, I could be driving for 6 hours and I'm still in the same state.
Yeah. But anyways, so let's talk about the PR angle of things. So when did you actually start the PR process of everything, James?
Yeah, it started as I said, it started around like in mid-April, as I said, is when the actual PR started itself.
Okay, so that consisted of getting John to send out the kit to media and stuff like that, correct?
Yeah, yes, like the press releases and all that stuff.
Okay, so when did you release your first single?
I think it was the same day, actually. Wait, no, it was the next day. It was the next day, because we announced it on, I think it was a Wednesday, I think, and then we released the first single the next. No, it was on a Tuesday. You know, we announced it on a Tuesday, and then we released the next single on. I think it was. I forgot what exact date. It was the next day we released the first single. Yeah.
So how many singles did you guys release in total? It was 2, right? Or was it 3?
Two. We wanted to do more, but but as I said, it was just like it was just like a time and a budget thing. So
okay. Okay, before I move on to the next question, was the reason why you guys had a bit of a time crunch, was that just because the label wanted to release on a certain time frame?
No, actually, well, the thing with the label is that it was we pretty much picked the release date because the label has nothing to do with the digital side of things, like for like so I actually told him like in advance. I said, hey man, we're gonna release it digitally on June 4th, and he goes, oh, okay. So their main thing has to do with just the physical side of things, but
okay.
Yeah.
Was there a strategy on the release date, or you just kind of went, fuck it, I'm going to do June 4th?
Well, what happened was that like I actually asked John, I actually had a few dates in mind, and I said, hey, like I thought I just said a Friday in June. That's all I said, and he goes, oh well, we can do June 4th. And I'm like, all right, you know, so that's pretty much it. But in hindsight, one thing I'm gonna try and look for in the future. And this is a good thing or a bad thing, you know, depending on your perspective. But I didn't know this at the time, but June 4th, man, there were so many power metal releases that day. I didn't realize it. Like LYCANTHRO came out with a new album. Rhapsody of Fire came out with a new album. Seven Spires and Majestica had new singles, you know. So I was kind of like, well, I should have looked this up before I figured out the dates.
Yeah, that's a pro tip there, because what you should always do for anybody who's listening, one thing I do, and sometimes I forget, but most of the time I don't. If somebody asks me about a release date, I go to Heavy Music Headquarters and I look at all the release albums that they have coming out, because they're one of the few sites that lists pretty much everything in metal that's coming out in the next few months. So you can look there, and they have the independent releases for most people. They have all the label releases. You can see how many albums are coming out each week for the next few months. You'll even see some stuff is up for September right now. We just picked a release date for an album in October, looking at Heavy Music Headquarters. So you can find anything. So James, next time you have an album release, look at Heavy Music Headquarters album release dates.
Yeah, sweet. Thanks, man. Because I that's something I was actually wondering about was because as I mentioned to you and Corey just in like Facebook messaging before, is that we plan on doing another release in like maybe March, April next year. So that'll be good to know.
Yeah, you just got to take a look there, and it's not always an exact science, because a lot of times stuff gets put out for release after you announce. So sometimes you can still get fucked over, but it's a pretty good tool to look for. Because, for example, just for anybody listening, I once thought I'd figured out a great release date for a band. It was a death metal band, and then it ended up being all these 2 major releases got announced right after we announced it. So it can still happen sometimes, but it's easier. It's good to check it out. Okay, so you just
that actually happened to Akiavel too. We knew about one major release coming like right after, and then another band decided that the week before they were also going to do a major release. And so I mean, it does happen, but we still checked, and it's always a good idea to check.
Yeah. Okay, so you didn't have a science to your release date then, James, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, no. I just kind of said, okay, we want to release it this month, and we kind of let John pick the day pretty much.
Okay, cool. So then next thing that happened, so you guys started the press promo. John, I guess, sent out the press release and everything like that. What kind of happened after that?
Well, what we did actually, because there's a few resources that I have too, that because one thing that I found funny, but I also felt really bad about, was I'm someone that when it comes to our promo and our kind of PR cycle, I like to be very involved, and I felt bad because every time, because I'm someone that I always try and seek out publications on my own as well, aside from everything that for example, the database that you or John would have. And a lot of the times what I did was I was actually even setting up stuff myself. And John, he wouldn't give me shit for it, but he'd be like, hey, dude, it's okay. I can do all that. And I'm just like, no, I have to do it myself too. I want let me do some of it, because if I don't, I'm going to go freaking crazy, because I'm not the kind of person who, even though we have a publicist, I need to be doing something myself too. I have to be like, okay, I've been following this YouTube channel for a while. I should hit them up to see if they'll talk about the album, blah, 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 and stuff like that. So after we announced it, a lot of it was just promoting the first single, Crucible, which went over really well. And pretty much it was like consisting of like, I joined like every niche power metal group I could on Facebook and posted it all there, and tried to figure out like some unique things for content to put out so more people will see it. And one thing I found really funny about all that was that I don't know if this is a common thing that happens, but the content that I wasn't expecting to do well was actually the ones that did well. The ones I was expecting to do well was the ones that didn't. Which for a quick example, on Instagram, I did literally, and I think this was even before we announced the album, but one day I saw a friend of mine do something similar. So I decided, I'm like, okay, I'm going to try out this Reels function that there's on there now. So I made a video called Singer Recording Struggles, because since throughout the entire pandemic, I've been recording everything from home, and it is hell. Yeah. Because there's no one to tell you if the take's good or not. So I tried to be funny and make this video about how like, singers, we hate, recording at home. It sucks, and that little like 30-second reel got, I kid you not, and I was very overwhelmed, it got about 100,000 views on Instagram. You got
100,000 views on a reel?
Yeah.
Wow, that's fucking cool.
I was shocked, and like people like, because I'm not someone who like, I'm the kind of person who tries to be funny and usually fails, but people were like commenting, and they're like, oh, especially musicians, they're like, oh man, this is so relatable, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, yeah, because it's what I've been going through, even making this album, because on this album, 6 out of the 8 songs I had to do from home, because we heard the original mixes, and I told them to scrap the vocals because at the time I had a vocal issue. I had a problem in my throat, so I couldn't sing very well. So since I've gotten better, I said, well, I can't go to a studio right now, or nothing's open. So I bought a good mic and I did it from here. And the whole struggle of it was, oh, all these takes. I'm doing like a million takes and I hate all of them and blah, 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 blah. And so I made the punchline, like I zoomed in on Pro Tools, and then I kind of played the take, and in the background, I kind of just went, you suck, you suck, you suck, you suck. And I just thought it'd be funny. And then, yeah, literally 100,000 views on a reel. And I was like, what? And then on the flip side, me and my friends filmed, like, because I saw a few bands I like do like a track by track series where I'd like talk about each song on the album and all that stuff. And I posted it.
Art.
No one gave a shit about that. People liked like the really kind of funny, kind of spontaneous stuff more than the actual planned stuff is what I found. Like on Instagram, I'll also like do
Wait. Nobody liked the fucking behind the track thing, like the track?
They did, but not as much as I was expecting. Like
okay.
it didn't have as good a reception as I thought it was going to, but like a lot of the really smaller, more lighthearted stuff did, which I was completely shocked by.
Okay, keep talking. I want to look this up while you're talking. I want to see how many views you got on that. But anyway,
that can also just be based on your audience and what your audience favors versus necessarily what another audience might want, those kind of track by tracks, but your audience for some reason doesn't identify with them. So that could all just be audience based rather than necessarily content based as well.
Yeah, maybe like
or it was just an off day and people really didn't want to, a track by track, and they wanted something really funny because their day sucked or something. Like there's a lot of factors in it.
Yeah, like I found that whenever we did like not even just that one, but I made a sequel reel to that, which was I did one called Guitarist Recording Struggles. Mm-hmm. And that one got about, not as many as the first one. That one got about 40,000 views. So it was like, so I'm like, okay, now I found what people like. And I think it's because in the genre of power metal, and we've seen this many, many times with previous like bands, like some of the greats, is that a lot of them, even though we're a genre that we like to think that we're very serious, there's always the element of comedy in there. Like if you listen to any Ed Guy album, there's always at least one comedy song in there. Like, Ed Guy will have all these big epic, tracks. And then right in the middle of the album, they'll have, Laboratory Love Machine. It's just like,
they'll
always have some. So I find that that's kind of the audience, as you were saying. So
is that really a song, Laboratory Love Machine?
Yep, I'm not even joking.
Okay, I gotta look that up later. Okay.
Yeah, it's true. Ed Guy has some of the funniest tracks ever. Like one of my personal favorite songs from them. They have a song called Trinidad, which is literally about the lead singer. His friends make fun of him because he's short and his girlfriend's taller than him. So he leaves her in the middle of the night and starts a new life in Trinidad.
Okay. All right.
It's so dumb, but the song is great. So
okay. All right. Okay, moving right along. Moving right along from power metal cheesy lyrics and comedy lyrics. So okay, so how did you guys do targeted promotion on this, or was it kind of like a broad type thing that you guys did?
Are you talking about like ads?
No. I'm talking about just in general, like with your PR, if you know.
I think because whenever I hear targeted promotion, I always just automatically assume ads.
No. Like, were you guys just going after power metal sites, metal site, traditional metal type sites, or was it like a broad thing?
I think it was. I could be wrong here because again, John did a lot of the work there, but I think it was like kind of a combination of both. Like he sent it to everyone that he usually sends it to, but he tried to emphasize it more on the power metal and traditional metal sites, like that, because that's where we got most of the reception from, that's where we got most of the results from. But yeah, I think it was kind of more like, I know it's weird, but I think it was like kind of both. Like I think it was he just sent it to everyone that he usually sends it to, but the ones that he kind of tried to push a bit more were the more sites that were more relevant to us.
Fair enough. So then, okay, so the next question is, did you guys get in on any larger sites or anything like that? Or I know you did, but can you say like some of the larger places that you got onto?
Well, Metal Injection, which
Nice.
which was really awesome. And yeah, no, it's because I think it was like Metal Injection, Brave Words, trying to think, is there anywhere else? Those are the main two that I can think of off the top of my head.
So now, how does a newer band then get on the bigger sites? Do you know? Is it just like your PR gets in touch with them, or like how does it work?
Well, I find it's like I don't know if I'm the one who's the most qualified to say that. I think Corey has probably has a much better, probably will have a much better answer than me. But from what I've seen, I think it's just like you got to have like pretty much all your shit together. You can't, like, the production of the music has to be there, and you have to be like, the press release obviously has to look good and all that stuff. And yeah, as I said, like, this is stuff that I'm still learning myself too. So yeah.
Fair. Okay, so now how did the press release come about? If you know, was that just basically John, or you kind of worked on it with them, or what?
John pretty much just wrote it himself and then just kind of sent it to me to, like, okay it. He's like, hey man, here's the press release for this, for the next single. What do you think? And I look it over and I'll like, okay, yeah, this is good, or, oh, can you change this or whatever, and then he'll send it off. That's pretty much how it went.
Fair. Corey, you had a follow-up, right?
No, I was just gonna say, based on what James just said about how a newer band can get onto Metal Injection or the bigger sites, it really came down to your networking, James, versus anything else. Like you mentioned earlier in the show that you took a very hands-on approach to the things that you do. And to be fair, actually, the band that I managed the most actively, they did the same thing, and they would end up just sending me saying, hey, can you make sure this person gets our promo kit? Can you make sure this person gets our promo kit? So being really active in your networking and not leaving it up entirely to someone else, as long as you're constantly in communication with your PR or whoever it is that you're working with, so that they know what's going on too, is much more powerful, because that's how it worked with Metal Injection specifically, was your networking versus anything else. Because like I told you earlier, we tend to need to get things in advance. And you were able to get it to me in advance, your videos and everything else. So that's how a band can kind of take charge, is just being out there. Doing your lives is such a wonderful tool for the networking. And being really active in the community, it gets people much more interested in your band than just a blanket press release that's sent out to everybody. Is taking a little bit of charge in your own promotion, which you do wonderfully.
Thank you. And yeah, and you actually said it a lot better than I would have, because that's one thing that that's what I was trying to say a minute ago, was the thing is that, like, because when you're saying about like the whole hands-on approach thing, is that you mentioned Achiavel did this. I do the same thing, where there were multiple times where I actually went to John and said, hey man, make sure this person, this person, this person, this person, and this person gets our press package. Because there were people, because one thing I did before the album, before the PR started, was I actually had a list of publications. Like, one thing I would always do, like, religiously, was if I was on social media, if I found a new publication, a new page, a new YouTube channel, a new podcast, I'd always write it down. I have like a document on my phone that's just like my own personal database. You know what I mean? Like, it's obviously nowhere near as big as Curtis's or John's, but I'll always have my list, and I'll reach out to all of them. And if they're interested, I'll be like, okay, John, if you haven't already, if you could send our stuff to this person, this person, this person, that'd be great. And I got some good results from that too. Like, even yesterday, I did an interview with a YouTube channel that I've been following for a while. It's this dude named Belgian Jasper. which I was very surprised he asked me to be on the channel, because this is a dude who like normally interviews like big boy bands. Like he's had like Halloween members of Halloween and Unleash the Archers and Doro Pesh and stuff like that. And I'm like, I just did it to like kind of throw it out there. I'm like, this guy won't have me. I'm not big enough. But literally about 2 weeks later, he messages me, "Hey man, I listened to the album and I loved it. I got in touch with your PR guy. I'll do an interview with you." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And it was because I messaged him first, so.
Yeah. I don't think there's, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Because, well, let's take Akiavel for an example. I don't speak French. I don't live in Europe. So they're going to be more in touch with their own scene than I am.
Yep.
And they're going to be talking to people over there in France and in, where they have connections in Austria with some of their friends and things like that, that there's nothing wrong with taking a hands-on approach to your own networking. Like I said, as long as you're in communication with who's doing PR and who you're working with. And honestly, that's mutually beneficial for everybody. Because like Curtis and I got a whole slew of new contacts over in Europe because we were all working together to promote this band. And again, it creates a certain level of emotional investment that the publication won't have with the PR, but they will have with the band. So being able to put yourself out there more is a very powerful tool.
Yeah. Me? Okay. Well, what I was just gonna say was no, like that's absolutely right. And one thing that I see a lot of bands do, just from my personal experience, is that some bands who they'll either, if they hire a PR agency, if at all, they'll just kind of let the PR agency do their thing and they won't do anything at all. And I find that will only get you so far, like, as I said, like I found exponential growth from, kind of working in tandem with the PR. Because I find that because as I told you, like the stuff like the live streams and all that, like that was probably like, the most, exposure we've gotten in a long time. Because like, I always like to joke, I'm like, we're piggybacking off of people who have more of a fan base than us. But at the same time, I'm building a connection with this person who I more or less am like a fan of or I look up to. And a lot of whatever person I'm talking to, their fans, I've had people message me afterwards and be like, "Hey, I checked out your stuff and I loved it. I ordered the album," So it's worked in advance. Like, for example, there's a guy who he lives in, I think I joked about you, Corey, with this once, is that he lives in Vancouver, Washington.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, him. Oh, yeah, it was during our stream. Yeah. The guy from Vancouver. So that guy, his name's Eric. He discovered us because I did a stream with I think it was Adrian. I think, the lead singer from Seven Spires. And he discovered us through that, and then literally ever since then he's been in every single stream. He has bought all of our merch,
Wow.
He's done and he like likes everything. And it's so, I found that like that doing that has definitely, opened your horizons, as it were, to, all these different people who wouldn't normally have been able to find you.
Yeah. One last thing I just want to point out on this, because I think it's kind of weird because I've had it where bands have told me like their former PR or whatever didn't like them going ahead and contacting people and stuff on their own. Personally, again, I think it's a good thing because you got the double ding. The only time it's bad is when the band has poor communication skills and they're unable to actually contact a publication on their own without sounding stupid. James has obviously got good communication skills, able to do it on his own. He's good at networking. So someone like him doing it, I think, is absolutely perfect. But if you are a band and you do not know how to communicate to people and you are getting bad reactions on your own, maybe talk to your PR before doing something like that. But as a general rule, I think it's 100% perfect when the band does that, because it backs me up in the campaign. People are already expecting the promo. it's like a cakewalk when you got 2 people double teaming it, or 3 people, or 4 people. But the key again is good communication. If you start doing it all behind your PR's back and being annoying, then it can get a bit of a weird thing, or reverse with the PRs and telling the band what's going on, because that can happen too, quite a bit too.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
so,
and another thing that I'll bring up adding to that is this is one thing that like John was telling us in the first little while was he was saying, oh, if you contact anybody, let me know, because one thing he was always going on about is double pitching. He says, oh, that's not a good thing. So he's like, because he said, he's like, if you're gonna, I think he told me, he says, before you contact anybody, let me know and I'll tell you if I've talked to them already or not.
Yeah, I mean, it depends, right? So I mean, there's always judgment calls on it, like. But anyways, I mean, everybody's got their own style.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of somebody who gets pitched all day long, if it's somebody I know, like say you're reaching out to me and then I get a promo from John, that won't bother me at all, because like I know you, we're friends, we talk. It's like, oh, okay, there's the LYCANTHRO thing. Cool. It doesn't, like, double pitching doesn't bother me if I'm in contact and in communication with the band and I know what's going on. Like if it's you're sending me cold emails and then John's sending me cold emails, that's a little different. But like you and I talk, and I talk to a lot of bands. So really, if they sent me something like, hey, we have this thing coming out, would you pitch it? And then a few days later I got the thing from their PR, I'd be like, whatever. It wouldn't bother me one little bit.
Yeah. Or reversely, like if I'm talking to someone and then Corey talks to them, if we're pitching someone, or Gaia talks, and most people aren't going to really care because they know we kind of go in tandem. Okay, back to you, James. So next thing for the promo cycle here. So you guys landed on Metal Injection just because you're awesome, basically, is what you're saying. So
that's exactly why they landed on Metal Injection. I love my little wolf cub.
Oh, you guys are so sweet.
So next question I gotta have here, I want to ask you is, so with the networking thing, did you find that helped get you more sales, or do you think or did it not really matter? Like, how was your sales?
Oh, I'm really glad you brought that up. Because I know that's kind of your guys' kind of wheelhouse a lot of the time on this show is, sales on it. The sales went a lot better than I was expecting, honestly, cool. because one thing that I was worried about from the get-go was sort of like, oh, we haven't released anything in like 3 years, and I'm afraid kind of, like people may have forgotten about us, and stuff like that. But what happened is that the thing with the sales is that I found it was weird for us, because there were a lot of times where it kind of went up like this. It's like sale. It was like sale, and then kind of plateau for like a few days, and then sale, and then plateau for a few days. And I found that was kind of like I don't know how that happened, but I found it was mainly like, but the sales, I guess overall did a lot better than I was expecting. We sold in pre-sale about more than, I haven't gotten the actual CDs in yet. We should be getting them this week because they're coming from Greece. Yeah. But I think in pre-sale we've sold more than a third of our stock.
Nice.
So yeah. So nice. Like at least in terms of the CDs, at least. But we've sold like more than a third, which was a lot better than I was expecting. I was expecting, hey, if we sell like a quarter, then I'll be happy. But we did more than that, and it was really great. But sales is still something I'm still trying to learn, because I know there's different techniques to it and stuff like that. And I was trying to figure that out while I was doing this. So yeah.
I have a quick suggestion for you just on the sales thing, if you want to hear it, or if you want me to not say it.
Please.
What I would do is on every single one of your live streams, unless you're doing it, because I haven't seen them all, I would tell people to go order the album at the end of each live stream, and I would get someone to place the link into the live stream as well. But at the end of every single live stream, tell people to buy the album. And if you got a copy, when you got a copy, hold it up.
I do actually.
Do you? Okay, then I haven't seen that.
Yeah, well, I don't actually have a copy of the album. What I did before, and this is the thing I actually forgot to mention when you were asking me at the beginning about, I started doing the live streams before the album, but I was still promoting something, because what I used to do at the end of each live stream was we were on that Running Wild tribute album. So I used to say, like, since I tried to get more power metal centric guests, I'd say, hey guys, if you guys are into, if you like Running Wild, we're on this, and I'd hold up the
CD. That's why I didn't think you were doing the CD. Okay, cool.
Yeah, because I was doing this, and I was saying, even though we didn't really have any copies to sell ourselves, like, because the label that did this release was like, is pretty small. So cool. I was kind of directing them to them. Be like, oh, cool. Order this on Burning Sun Records, Bandcamp, link is in our bio, blah, 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 And I just hold up my own personal copy, I guess. And it seemed to work. It seemed to work decently. So
cool. All right. I want my CD autographed when you send it, by the way. And I to say,
I remember for sure.
From Baby James, I wanted to say.
Oh yeah? All right.
I'm going to hold it up when I get. Okay, so sales, you said, did better than last time. Why do you think that would be? Do you think that was because you got PR, or do you think it's because of your live streams, or do you think it was a combo of both?
Honestly, I think it was a combo of both, because one thing that I'll admit before this is our original release, our first release that we did before this, the Four Horsemen EP. We didn't actually do PR for that, because I'll be honest, I was, I didn't know what PR was. I'm still a young kid, but I was a younger kid back then. And I didn't know I met John Asher when we did the Wacken metal battle. That's what, and then he explained to me what PR was. And I'm like, why the hell didn't we do this before? Because literally what it was the first time we released something was, hey, I just cold wrote a bunch of publications and just hoped whoever picked us up. And that's about it. And the sales for this one is done a million times better than the last one, because the thing about us is that we were such a live band that we would sell all of our merch at shows, but obviously because of this pandemic, I had to take a step back and say, okay, I have friends who are releasing albums during this time. I need to pick their brains and learn from them and apply what they told me to what we're doing, because we had never had an online store before. We had never, to the point where we'd even have people message us before being like, hey, I live in like France and I want to buy an album. And I used to just he's like, do you have a store? And I'm like, but now I find that it's been, a lot better just doing that and kind of just taking everything I've been learning from you guys and Gaia and Andy and all them, and just kind of combining that all into doing this, into selling our stuff. And it turned out really well. Like, for example, I remember when we did the online store, after about 2 weeks or so, we had a couple of sales here and there. And then Gaia messaged me being like, hey, when are you doing bundles? And I'm like, what? She goes, yeah, you have to do bundles. And I'm like, oh, okay. She's like, yeah, trust me, more people will buy them if you do bundles. And I did, and sure enough, more people bought the bundles. So
of course. Yeah. So okay, so we got to wrap up because we got another phone call in about 8 minutes. So before we do you have any final words of wisdom you want to say, James? Baby James?
Oh.
Final words of wisdom in a nutshell.
Yeah, just bands, if you're watching, just try your best to network and just reach out to people. We're all human. As I've said before, I said this the last time I was on here, unless your name is Bruce Dickinson and you're just so high up the food chain, most people will talk to you, and if you kind of are, if you're polite, and if you're polite, if you're cordial, if you're personable, if you are friendly, then more often than not, they will be more than happy to help you out with whatever it is, whether it be, a publication or, talking to someone for an interview or a live stream or whatever, or even just to have someone check out your music and give you feedback. There's no harm in asking anyone,
I agree. Okay, Corey, do you have any final questions or words of wisdom you want to end this off with before I do?
No, I am good on my end.
Cool. Well, the last thing I want to say is that people should go and buy your new CD. You're going to be shipping it next week, and it's lycanthromerch.bigcartel.com by the looks of it.
Yes.
You cannot buy it on Bandcamp physically, only digitally, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So digital, go to Bandcamp, which is probably like lycanthro.bandcamp.com or something like that.
Yes.
And you can buy the CD shipping out next week, lycanthromerch.bigcartel.com. And if you buy it and you tell James you listen to the podcast, he will autograph it.
Yes.
Cool.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And with that, I'm going to say, party on, Corey.
Party on, Curtis. Party on, James.
Party on, guys.